Hey, this time let's introduce ourselves.
Cool.
For the first time,
Ever.
for the last time.
For the last time. They're going to have to find this video.
I don't have a nice shirt like yours to do this with.
You can just pin it to the top. Welcome back to Garner Brothers Movie Lovers. We are two of the Garner Brothers. I'm Chris.
I'm Josh.
And we are reviewing Star Wars Episode 9,
The Rise of Skywalker.
Our opinions on this movie are somewhat in line, although yours might be stronger than mine. We did not enjoy this movie. Spoiler warning, we are going to spoil everything about this movie during the video, so if you haven't seen Star Wars Episode 9 yet, don't watch this. And
Or
you've probably
watch
seen
it and just don't see it.
Ooh, that's another option, and possibly a better option.
Yeah, absolutely a better option.
Some people like it. 85%
I know,
of users
yeah.
on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, the Star Wars fans like it. Here's something interesting,
Some of the
though.
Star Wars fans do, not these ones
The majority of the Star Wars fans apparently do.
who use Rotten Tomatoes.
I guess so. Here's an interesting thing. In China, this movie tanked. Apparently, they didn't get the original trilogy when it came out. So there's no nostalgia in China. So if you want to have a good gauge of whether this movie is good or not and take away the nostalgia,
Huh.
look at China. And guess what? They don't like it.
Because there's no nostalgia. That's because this is a movie entirely of fan service.
Yep.
That's the entire film. Anyway, let's talk about the good first. Well, let's introduce the film, as if it needs any introduction. It was written by J.J. Abrams and a guy named Chris Terrio, who's fresh off of writing Justice League and Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Why?
And now they've got this one under their belt. Directed by J.J. Abrams, starring all the people who have been in it, except for the girl who played Rose, who
Has a very
cameo in this movie.
very minor role this time around.
Indeed. So, let's talk about the good. Josh really didn't like this movie, so let's see if he has anything good to say about it.
I have to say that in general, Kylo Ren is probably the most consistent thing in the entire series, and there was some stuff with him. There was one moment that got me, that I was actually really schoolboy excited about when they transfer the lightsaber. And he's fighting the Knights of Ren, and they're beating the poop out of him, and then he has his hands behind his back and he pulls a lightsaber out, and then he kind of gives this look like, you're screwed.
That look is perfect.
And then they're all like, crap, and then he kills them all, and it's so cool. It's so cool. Also, the Emperor, as much as I hated that he was in this movie, we talked about this after we went and saw it, he was freaky.
He was genuinely terrifying.
Yeah.
The way they lit that Exegol, that whole world, and his scary bad guy place, his little the strobe light effects on his face.
This
and
big underground temple with these big statues, and for some reason this eternal audience that just sits there and watches him. Whatever.
Yeah. And he's attached to this big old machine thing behind him.
Claw.
It looked really anime or something.
Oh, sure.
It was a creepy little world. Yeah. So they did a good job making him scary.
If they could have done something like that with Snoke and just had his upper body or something on that thing, that would have been better.
Yeah, they brought Darth Maul back after being chopped in half. They could have done that with Snoke. Or they can just bring the Emperor back. Any other good things?
I think, as far as the acting goes, I think everyone pretty much did just fine.
Acting is great.
The music, of course.
The music is fantastic. A much more fitting conclusion musically to this whole saga than the film was to this whole saga. But John Williams' music is great. Visually, of course, it's stunning.
Oh yeah,
Looks awesome.
yeah.
One of the things, and I don't know how you felt about this, but one of the things that I liked about the movie was Kylo Ren's turn from evil to good. I believed it. I did not believe Anakin's turn from good to evil in the prequels. That to me was so sudden. Like, he kills Samuel L. Jackson, then he's like, "What have I done?" And then he kneels down and says to the Emperor, like, "I will serve you." Like, why?
Yeah.
I just didn't buy it. I mean, it was a whole trilogy that was supposed to set up his turn from good to evil, and I just didn't buy the turn. It just happened. It just seemed to happen so fast. And like, his only reason was to protect. I get the reasons why. I just didn't believe it watching him. Like, I didn't buy that. But when Kylo gets like mortally wounded, but then healed by the very person he's been trying to turn, but at the same moment his mother dies. And then he has this memory of his father. I believed all of that. Like, that to me sold it.
Well, it's like I said.
And the moment
Kylo
when he
Ren
throws his lightsaber, I was like, that was the most emotionally impactful moment of the film for me.
Absolutely.
I bought that.
Absolutely. Kylo Ren was the best part of the movie.
Agreed.
And I think he was the best part of
The trilogy.
Yep, everything that's happened in this
He's
series.
always been the most interesting character.
Yep. A lot of people call him a whiny, annoying. I think he's very interesting. I think Adam Driver does amazing. And I do think that they intentionally made him an immature character, but I don't think that that diminishes from his story arc. So I liked it.
Yep.
I
liked it too. There are a couple of things that I appreciated from the film. One of my dislikes about the film is how it jettisons things from previous films. But I did like everything that it kept from previous films. So like, and especially the most immediate film, The Last Jedi. There's a lot of things in The Last Jedi that this movie completely ignores. Like Rose, an entire character, one of the main characters from the last movie. She's totally ignored in this. Is there a relationship between her and Finn? Who knows?
Is there a relationship between him and Rey? Who
Apparently
knows?
not.
There's that dumb scene where he says, "Rey, I have to tell you something." And then she's like, "What were you going to say?" And then they never tell you.
Although apparently J.J. Abrams has told people what he was going to say. He was going to tell Rey that he was force sensitive. That seems like a really stupid thing to tell somebody when you think you're dying.
When you're in the middle of
you're like,
dying.
"Rey, I have to tell you something." And then like to not tell them later. The way they played it, it totally seemed like it was going to be some kind of proclamation of undying love. And if you've seen episode 7, that makes sense. But that kind of got jettisoned too. But there were a couple things that they continued in this film from The Last Jedi that I liked. I liked that Kylo and Rey were still having this weird Force connection, which is a little weird because Snoke said he was doing that in the last one.
Yeah, but if you spent so much time in there,
maybe you could still have it.
Well, no, I was just thinking, like, as a Force user who's trying to learn and develop their skills, if you're just experiencing that all the time, why wouldn't you try to continue to be able to do that?
Yeah.
And you must be familiar in some way with it because you were directly involved with it in previous things, even though you weren't the one who was controlling it.
Maybe. And there are things about The Last Jedi that make me wonder if Snoke really was doing all that or if he just said he was, because there are things that he doesn't seem to know about that took place. Anyway, but I like that they carried that over. I like... As dumb as it is to me that the Emperor is alive and that he's in this movie, I like the line that there are, many abilities that come from the dark side of the Force that may appear unnatural, like straight out of the prequels, right? So anything that they took from previous films and continued in this film, I liked that. But there's so much that they did not continue or that they totally changed, and so that's a problem. And one last thing that I appreciated about the film was C-3PO's arc.
I was going to say the same thing before we moved on.
Yeah.
C-3PO had more to do in this movie than
in any movie ever.
And it was all pretty good.
Yep.
And it was like genuinely sad when he was going to forget everything. They're like, "What are you doing?" "Taking one last look at my friends." I was like, "Goodbye, C-3PO." And then 2 scenes later, they're like, "Oh, look, here's your memory chip." We'll just undo anything that is remotely significant.
Yeah, that happens over and over in the movie, and that's another one of our problems with it. But, yeah.
I liked that little guy who...
Boba Frick or whatever his name was.
Who, like, Especially the moment.
Sorry, I got that wrong.
The moment when C-3PO comes back and he says, "I am C-3PO, human relation, blah 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 blah," and then the guy's like, "I'm Boba Fett." He's like, "Hey."
3PO refers to him as his oldest friend or oldest acquaintance at some point.
He's one of my oldest friends.
Yeah.
I really liked that guy until there was the scene at the end when
he just pops up.
When he was in a spaceship for no reason, so he could just go.
Okay, let's move on to the less good stuff. There were many, many moments in this film that as I was sitting in the theater, I just thought, no, you're not going to do that. Oh, you totally did that. Like, no, you're not going to bring Palpatine back with the title crawl. You wouldn't do that. Oh, you did that.
The title.
You wouldn't make Palpatine Rey's grandpa. No, oh, you did that. You wouldn't make a Star Destroyer blow up a planet. Oh, you did. I mean, there's so many moments like that, and especially the kiss. That's the worst one. Like, oh man, why?
And I think their relationship, like everything that was going there, was very like personal and like, but it wasn't romantic at all, and it was just not. It was out of place. It was so out of place.
Yeah. Seems like that might have been a moment of fan service. Like, a lot of people wanted to see Kylo and Rey get together, so there you go. There's a kiss, and now he's dead. And there's just so many other examples of fan service. It really bothered me, actually. Like, sometimes fan service is great. Avengers Endgame did fan service perfectly. But then this movie is like, you know, hey, let's bring Wedge back for like 2 seconds. Let's bring Lando back for like 10 seconds. Let's bring, you know, like, let's have them kiss. Hooray. Let's give Chewie a medal. Oh, man. So many examples of that. And I just thought, this is not good. There's a way to do fan service, and I felt, I don't know, patronized or something. Okay. Let's talk about Palpatine. He's back.
Yeah, the fact that they just brought him back in the title crawl was terrible. It totally undoes everything from the original trilogy. You have this prophecy or whatever about Skywalker is gonna save everyone, and you think it's Luke the whole time, and the twist is kind of that it's Darth Vader. And it's
brought
awesome.
balance to the Force.
Yes, and then they just bring back.
But apparently
Emperor.
He didn't.
Yeah. So oh well.
So yeah, watch that scene. Watch the Emperor fall down the shaft. Watch him explode at the bottom of the shaft. And then, like 5 minutes later, watch the entire Death Star explode. I don't know how he survived that, and there's absolutely no attempt to explain that away. Like, did he get...
All it is that line that you said you kind of liked.
Yeah.
And I don't like it because of that.
I like that it was a throwback to the prequels, but
that's true.
But it is a really cheap way to bring a character back that just doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
That's one of my biggest pet peeves in movies is when death means nothing. They don't even attempt to explain it. It's just, he's there, and they just kind of warn you in the text roll at the beginning.
By the way,
Palpatine's here, and you're like, oh gosh, is that really it? And then, yep, that was it.
Yeah, that was when my happy feeling was gone. When the movie started, I loved...
The very first moment of the movie is when your happy feeling left.
I love when the Star Wars logo hits the screen and that high C hits and the theme starts and it goes back and the title starts to scroll, and then the very first 2 sentences are, Palpatine's back, and I just thought, oh no. And that was the end of my happy feeling. Like, I was so giddy. I was so excited. I have really enjoyed Star Wars all along. I had problems with The Last Jedi, but J.J. Abrams was back, and I thought he did a good job with Episode 7. Let's let him right the ship. But trying to right the ship actually have sunk the ship for me. So
I did not realize you were saying ship there. I was very, very surprised.
Maybe we'll have to edit that. Anyway, Palpatine's back, and that's dumb. And even dumber, he has somehow constructed a humongous fleet of planet-killing Star Destroyers that are all fully staffed and rise up out of the ground. Oh, man. No. Anyway, and apparently he's been pulling the strings behind the First Order the whole time. No, he hasn't. This is a classic example of movies that just didn't build off of one another. There's no way this was J.J. Abrams' plan from the beginning. He had to do things differently after Rian Johnson came in and changed a bunch of stuff. And so I just wish he would have taken some of Rian Johnson's stuff. We could have started this movie with Kylo Ren in charge of the First Order and the Resistance just a sliver of what it once was. And let's see what happens from there. But instead, is Kylo Ren really in charge? Is he the big bad? No, not even a little. I mean, he gets one cool scene where he's running through a planet totally trashing everybody at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, that was really cool. I genuinely have loved Star Wars since I was a kid. I remember one time going through, and we had that remote that could you could change the speed that it was going at, and I would go through all the actions, all of the action scenes in slow motion. I was like, this is so awesome. And it's just like this choppy, terrible slow motion. But I loved Star Wars, and I was young enough when the prequels came out that I liked them when I saw them. But I was also old enough to realize, by the next year, that it wasn't good. And anyway, yeah. It just makes me sad. I told Chris after a day we saw each other again, and I said, I think I hated this movie so much that I have no desire to see another Star Wars movie in theaters. There has to be some big shifts before I'm going to give them any money to go see Star Wars, because I've never wanted to not be watching a movie more than when I was sitting in the theater watching this movie. I'm just genuinely sad about the way this has gone. I would have rather have seen a sequel from Rian Johnson. The biggest problem about all of this is not the actors, is not even necessarily the directors.
Kathleen Kennedy?
It's her problem. It's her fault.
She's not Kevin Feige. She's not doing what Kevin Feige has done for Marvel. She didn't have a coherent plan for this trilogy, or she didn't make sure that somebody had a coherent plan for the trilogy, or she didn't make sure that everyone stuck to that plan. But there clearly was no plan for this trilogy.
And because they kept switching out directors, and it just came to my attention that there was a different director on board for freaking episode 9.
Yeah, Colin Trevorrow was supposed to direct it, and he got fired, and so Abrams took back over and didn't have as much time, and they had to bump the film from May to December.
But like I said, it's not the director's fault. The original trilogy was 3 different directors, right?
I think so. And Marvel, how many different directors have there been in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
So many.
But as long as, and it's been a problem for some directors, famously, in fact. And when they wouldn't play ball, they ended up getting fired. Or they didn't like playing ball so much they refused to come back, like in the case of Joss Whedon. So it's a stressful thing sometimes to make movies like that, but that was the price that was paid so that Marvel could put out a bunch of movies that all work together in a nice, cohesive story. And
then when you find freaking the Russo brothers, you just give them all the important movies and let them do whatever they want, because you can trust them. But you don't just start with one director and say, do whatever you want, and then get a new director and say, do whatever you want, and then get another director and say, do whatever you want. By the way, you're fired. Bring back the first one and say, fix everything.
Well, and so the biggest problem with the trilogy is it doesn't play like a trilogy. It plays like 3 movies that were made completely separate from each other. as a trilogy, the prequels are better than this sequel trilogy. Not individual movies. I'll pick any of these newer movies over any of those prequels. I feel like they're better, more enjoyable for me. But as a overarching trilogy, I don't know. The prequels win. They're a much more cohesive story, better laid out, better plotted, much more consistent. There's just consistency there. And there's a huge lack of consistency in these new movies. So
I would rather watch episode 1 solely for the Darth Maul battle at the end. I enjoyed that moment more than any of the moments combined from Rise of Skywalker to...
Yeah. That moment made me cheer in theaters when I saw it back when I was in high school. That Darth Maul fight. I cheered about nothing in this new movie. I felt nothing in this new movie except for that one scene with Kylo Ren chucking his lightsaber. Yeah, that was the only time.
And just everything else was just disappointment after disappointment. And even the moments that, like, I think, like, the moment with Han Solo as a memory or whatever and all that, like, and he was basically saying the same thing he told him before.
Yep.
I know what I need to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. And like, there's a lot of emotion there, but just the moment I saw Harrison Ford, I just a bad taste in my mouth because it was just another thing that the director was doing to make you think like, oh look, this is a good Star Wars movie because we brought back Han. Look, here he is. Han's
and Lando
back.
and Luke and Leia and Chewie and 3PO and then in the whole voiceovers they brought back Qui-Gon Jinn and Anakin
Christensen.
and all of these, and Yoda was in there, and even some people from, I think, the Star Wars Rebels or like the Clone Wars. I think there were some characters from there that were in there. And anyway, yeah, too much fan service. Anyway, just too much plot, too. I think with J.J. Abrams trying to wrap up everything from the first film and the second film in the trilogy in a nice package, you feel like
this should have been a 4-hour movie.
Yeah, or this should have been 2 movies. Like, I feel like we had 2 first movies in a trilogy, and now we have a third movie that has to be the second movie too. And you're cramming all this story into, a 2-hour movie, and it jumps so
rushed.
fast. Just from this scene to that scene, and now we're here, and now we're doing this, and now we're doing that.
And the dialogue was just like ba 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 ba.
Yeah.
And
yep. Hey, we're generals now. Like. I mean, yeah, it just goes so fast. And it's not storytelling that builds on itself either. It's RPG storytelling. Now we have to go to this place and get this dagger. Okay, now we have to go to this place and get this other MacGuffin. And now we have to go to this place. And it's just and then storytelling. Nothing's happening because of anything else. It's just this happened, then this happened, now this, okay, now this, okay, now this. And it's just, yeah.
And specifically the dagger was that whole sequence where they just like fall into the quicksand and then they're in the tunnels and then they find the dagger and the dialogue is like, what is that? It's a dagger. There's writing on it. It's Sith writing. Blah, 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 blah. This is what Luke has been looking for the whole time. I'm like, wow, extremely convenient that you happened to crash the one stormtrooper in the entire galaxy from the beginning of the series to now, finally connected, blew up their thing, didn't kill anyone, but they all landed. At least he was an
accurate shot.
And they all landed
in the very quicksand
spot
that
where
would take them to the dagger. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! And then like.
Well, and then they get to this moon of Endor, which is not the forest moon, but some other moon that the Death Star apparently landed on, I guess. And then they happen to be standing on exactly the point of the shore where you like hold the dagger and it like matches perfectly with the wreckage of the Death Star, which means this dagger is like, I mean, you get the impression when she picks it up that this is some ancient Sith evil dagger or something, but like, it can't be more than 40 years old if it has like the shape of the wreckage of the Death Star etched into the blade.
Gosh.
Anyway, the MacGuffins were a little silly in this movie as well. Also, still a problem for me is Rey's ability to do anything on her first try. This has always been the case. She's never had to struggle for anything. Luke didn't really train her at all. Apparently now we know that Leia was training her, in one of Abrams' attempts to like explain stuff from the last movie, because we had no indication that she was, you know, some force-wielding person until she was flying through space.
From what I've understood, like the reviews for these movies are like perfectly flipped. The audience score and the critic score for The Last Jedi, the critics really liked it, the audience really didn't. In this one, we have the critics didn't like it, and the audience really did. And even the percentages are
Really close.
very close.
Yeah.
And I think that the same was true with me in this. I liked The Last Jedi. There was problems with it that I'm aware of, but like what movies don't have some problems? There was, and some were pretty big, I'll admit it. And I thought this movie was fine. I didn't love The Last Jedi. I was like, that was a fine movie. And then this movie came out, and I hated it.
And I didn't really like Last Jedi, and yet I still dislike this one. So, anyway. But yeah, so Rey's doing a bunch of stuff that we've never seen her do, or anyone else in any of the films. She's force healing, which I guess is a thing from other TV shows or books or whatever, but we've never seen it in a film. But Rey can now do it, and I guess what? Leia taught her that or something? Or maybe she just figured it out when they ran into the giant snake underground. And she can also float. That's just kind of a throwaway one, but when we first see her in her training montage, she's just floating in the air. Have we ever seen a Jedi float?
Yeah, Luke did that in The Last Jedi when
He floated himself? Oh, yeah. Well, okay, we have seen that one. She can block lightning like Samuel L. Jackson. I don't know if that's just lightsabers all block force lightning, or if that was like a specific
But
force
only
ability.
2 lightsabers can repel it back.
No, because Samuel L. Jackson's did.
Well, only 2 for Rey.
Anyway.
Because she's all the Jedi.
And the fact that she can overpower the Emperor right after she's apparently had all of her like life force drained. Like, she's still strong enough to beat the Emperor after he's just sucked all the whatever out of her, whatever that was. But it's because she's the Avatar. All the previous Jedi are now in her. It got very Last Airbendery for a second there when he was like, oh, the Sith are in me. And she's like, and oh, the Jedi are in me. And suddenly she overpowers him, even though she should be almost dead.
Oh man, this is exhausting.
The whole climax of the film. Can we talk about the climax? Why is it always destroying a planet? Why is that always the end game? You know, that was like a really big deal in Star Wars Episode 4, you know, the original Star Wars. Kind of blows up, and you're like, wow.
Every single movie since then.
So now let's blow up more planets and more planets. And Starkiller Base, let's blow up a whole bunch of planets at the same time. And now we have miniaturized Death Star tech on Star Destroyers. Now every Star Destroyer is a Death Star. It's like they keep asking themselves, how can we top this? I know, let's make a whole planet into a Death Star. Somehow a planet can move around and go from place to place and blow stuff up. But you needed something the size of a Death Star to blow stuff up in Star Wars and in Return of the Jedi. And you needed... Starkiller Base had to like suck all the energy out of a star to blow up what it blew up. So how are these miniaturized things doing it anyway? It's just silly. And after the Emperor, another one of my problems with the climax, after the Emperor sucks all the life force out of Rey and Kylo, he then shoots lightning up into the sky. Huge burst of lightning that like shreds all kinds of spaceships, right? It destroys all kinds of stuff up in the air. And then he turns that lightning that just blasted multiple ships out of the air, then he turns that full blast of lightning on Rey, and she deflects it with one lightsaber after having just had all her life force drained, and then pushes it back with 2 lightsabers. That's all very silly. And then, of course, the kiss. And then, of course, the celebration afterward where everybody's all happy and everything's happening. It was just so happy at the end. Chewie getting his medal and everybody just being so happy. It was like... So it was just real cheesy to me.
Have you seen the interview where the guy who plays Poe is asked if he would ever reprise his role again?
No.
without hesitation, he says, "No." And that's about how I feel.
And one of my biggest problems with the climax, going back to that, is the gigantic fleet of ships that Lando amasses in half an hour. Like, we sent out the all call back at Crate, was it? And nobody came. But now Lando's going to fly the Millennium Falcon around for half an hour, and everybody's going to come. Everybody in the whole galaxy. Well, why not? If the Emperor can rise an entire fleet of planet-killing Star Destroyers out of the ground, then why can't Lando just, poof, look at all these ships I brought. Now let me laugh like Lando as we zoom in and have this big fight. Anyway, the whole climax was pretty bad.
Yeah, and everything was so just predictable, and there was the moment when Poe's like, we're doomed, we're gonna lose. And then he's just like driving in the spaceship and all hope seems to be lost. I leaned over to Chris and I said, "On your left." And then all the spaceships came flying in, and it was just like, of course they did.
But that was so cool in Endgame when it happened, because you know
it was
why
earned.
It happened.
It was earned.
Yeah,
you can't just bring everyone in, have little to no just.
There's just so much. What is the phrase, the Latin phrase, Deus ex machina, or however you say that? This whole like, suddenly we're just saved by this thing that wasn't there before. There's no explanation for it. There's no setup for it. Boom. Giant fleet of starships. Great. Boom. Rey can deflect humongous amounts of force lightning with 2 lightsabers. Awesome. You know, like, anyway. Okay, another one of my problems is everything that Abrams did that was either explaining or apologizing for The Last Jedi. And this, I say this even as someone who had problems with all those things in The Last Jedi. To me, it just felt like we were checking boxes, and you did that. Every time something happened in this movie that felt like checking a box, Josh did this in the air, and I just thought, yeah, we're checking boxes. Why was Leia able to use the Force? Oh, well, she's always been able to do that ever since Luke trained her, and now she's training Rey. And yeah, there's your check. What about nobody liked Rose and that whole side story? So let's just take her right out of the movie. Let's try giving Snoke a backstory, because everybody was mad about that, right? So now, like, I created Snoke. Apparently, like, and you see, like,
and
pieces
for
of
some
Snoke
reason
in a
he's
jar
still
or
like
something.
cloning
like,
more
Snokes.
So
Snoke is a clone or something. Anyway, so we're trying to explain that. People didn't like when Luke chucked a lightsaber over his shoulder. So in this movie, Luke catches the lightsaber,
even though he's a ghost,
and then he says, you know, you shouldn't treat a lightsaber like that. Now, you can't argue that, hey, he's, you know, he learned from that point in the last film. And he did, but that line is like clearly trying to apologize for the last movie. The reference to the Holdo maneuver, hey, that was 1 in a million. So many people had problems with the Holdo maneuver, and they're like, well, why don't we just do the Holdo maneuver? And somebody was like, oh, we can't do that. That move was 1 in a million. I don't know why. I mean, it just looked like she pointed the ship at him and hit light speed, but apparently she like
you can't do
timed
it
it so perfectly. You can't do that. She could only do that at that moment or something. So anyway, every one of these things that was trying to explain something or apologize for something or make up for something, even though I didn't like those things in The Last Jedi in a lot of cases, even the throne room fight that I had a problem with in The Last Jedi. Why are these Force users fighting hand-to-hand combat with these red throne guard guys? And in this film, you see another scene where they're fighting people like that, only they're using the Force while they fight them, and it's way easier.
Oh my gosh.
It's like what it should have been in the last film. So
I didn't notice the red guys at all in the whole like event that was happening with Rey and the Emperor and the Claw, and then when they needed to fight red guys, all of a sudden there was red guys.
There's all these red guys. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Anyway, so all those moments didn't really kind of rub me wrong, I guess.
Oh man, the fact that everyone has to be someone of significance really, really annoys me. I loved that in The Last Jedi, the whole thing was basically, Rey is no one. It doesn't matter. And then they show that kid, that slave boy, force pull that broom or whatever. It was like, anyone has the potential to become a Jedi. And anyone can make a difference. And then in this movie, it was like,
no, you're a Palpatine.
and then at the end, one of the last things that happens is, I can't remember the character's name. It was one of the stormtroopers, the girl stormtrooper who had turned against the First Order as well.
I don't remember her name either.
And she goes up to Lando and he's like, well, who were you or something? And she's like, I'm no one. He's like, well, let's find out. I was like, gosh.
Yeah, either he's her grandpa or he's
he's the only black guy in the universe, so except for Sam. So it's either Samuel Jackson's great granddaughter or something,
or it's Lando's, or anyway. Yeah, the fact that she had to be Palpatine's granddaughter was just too much. I mean, we've stolen so much from the original trilogy. Do we have to steal that the main character is also a descendant of the big bad guy? Like, we're doing it again. Anyway, and this was another attempt, I think, that they were trying to explain why she's so strong, or, because she's a Palpatine, but that doesn't make sense either, because apparently Darth Vader was supposed to be this, he was born of the Force or whatever. He was supposed to be this super amazing Force user guy that was like the greatest ever, so why wouldn't his grandson be able to overpower Palpatine's granddaughter? Anyway, yeah. So that was a problem.
And it really bothered me too when Lando talked to her, because I'm ready for the Skywalker saga to die. Let it end.
It needs to be over.
And when they had that, it just felt like let's leave it open for possibilities. Same with the gold lightsaber scene. It was like, look at this. Maybe you get to see more of this. And I was like, no, let it die. Just let it be over. And if you do more Star Wars, which I'm sure they will, let it be different. And like, I'm enjoying The Mandalorian right now. Mandalorian is fine. It's good. There's filler episodes that aren't as good, but there's other ones that I really quite enjoy. And then I just don't want to see the Skywalker saga anymore. If I'm going to go see a movie in theaters again, it cannot be connected to the Skywalker saga. I'm off my soapbox. Continue.
Okay. Are we going to talk about Leia's role in this film? Carrie Fisher's part?
It wasn't the way they handled it. I don't envy them in this task.
And I don't blame them either. I mean, they had what they had and they had to use it, so.
And I think they did the best that they could. And I don't want to crap on that too hard.
No.
R.I.P.
And certainly not anything against Carrie Fisher, who we all love. So the other biggest problem, I guess, I have is the whole, bringing characters back from the dead. They do this so many times in this movie, starting with the very first lines in the title crawl with the Emperor himself. Then Chewie, yeah, you think Chewie's dead, only, 5 minutes later we find out he's not. And that was really interesting to me. I mean, I didn't like how Chewie was killed off screen, but the fact that Rey accidentally killed Chewbacca, I thought, holy cow, this is like the first time Rey's ever made a mistake. Nope, it wasn't a mistake. The only mistake was thinking that she'd blown up Chewbacca when she actually hadn't. So he comes right back. Kylo gets stabbed through the midsection with a lightsaber, and you think, whoa, he is toast. And then, nope, she force heals him, so he's okay. And C-3PO gets his memory wiped, but then it comes right back. And then Ben Solo dies again or maybe you think he does when, he falls off. He gets thrown off the cliff, and you don't know But of course he's not dead. He climbs back up, and then Rey dies at the end. But then
he waits for the fight to end, and then he comes.
Then he comes back. He's like, is it over? Okay.
Looks like it's safe.
So yeah, but then he like gives his life energy to her long enough to give her a kiss and die himself. There's just so much of, this person dies and then they come right back. There was so much of that in the movie. And then I mentioned this already, but I didn't like the happiest ending ever. Like, yay, Rey's a Skywalker now. Yay, the First Order is gone after one battle. Yay, Finn has a new former Stormtrooper friend, girlfriend number 3, maybe? I don't know. Yay, Poe is a general now and he's in charge of everyone or something.
I have to say,
yay, Chewie got his medal.
I did like the moment when, after everything's over and everyone's celebrating, Poe sees that like ex-girlfriend, her character,
Carrie Russell's character,
and they give each other the nod of like respect, and no words are exchanged, but the nod of respect, and then she gives it back, and then he goes.
She's like, no.
She just says no.
That was a great exchange. That was really funny.
I really like the guy.
Really funny.
I really liked Poe in all these movies as well, actually. But
he did fine. Anyway, in the end, to me, this feels like, it almost feels to me like they storyboarded the trailer and then made a movie that would have all the scenes they needed for the trailer. Like, I was genuinely moved by the last trailer for the Rise of Skywalker. Like, I went back and watched it again after seeing the film, and I was still moved by it, even though I didn't like the film. I mean, I had the feels while I was watching the trailer, and I thought, man, where's the movie that I thought I was going to see? Because that wasn't the movie that I saw. I was more emotionally moved by that trailer than I was anything in the film. But if you look at the trailer, there's this scene where Rey has the double-bladed red lightsaber. That scene is in the movie for like 2
switchblade
seconds.
Lightsaber.
Yeah, like, that was so cool in the trailer. You're like, wow, and then it's nothing in the actual film. Or, I don't know, C-3PO's taking one last look at my friends, or, let's have Kylo and Rey fighting on a piece of wreckage in the middle of huge swelling waves. That looks really cool. I don't know, it just felt like, anyway. It wasn't good. Should we rate this? Do you have anything else to say?
I don't think so. I think you said everything I wanted to say.
Sorry.
No, I'm just saying. Yeah, I'm grateful that you did. I
had to write it all down. Like, it took me a while to figure out everything that I had a problem with. And a lot of people are probably going to tell me, like, why can't you just have fun when you watch a movie? And I guess my answer to that is, it's not that hard for me to have fun at movies. This one, it would be hard for me to have fun. I mean, there were parts that were fun, and parts that I laughed, and fights that were good to watch. But overall, it's just not a well-made film. And it actually made me appreciate The Last Jedi more. I was not a fan of The Last Jedi. And now, looking at it, I mean, if this is kind of where J.J. Abrams was taking it all along, I can see why Rian Johnson threw out everything and was writing his own thing. And I can see why he wanted it to go a different direction, because it was just... Anyway.
If he does come back and do 3 more Star Wars movies...
I can't imagine he will.
If he does, I'll come
those.
see him.
Yeah.
I'll come see him.
Yeah.
But, man,
anyway. Don't you think George Lucas right now is just sitting somewhere like, what do you think of me now? Like, everybody who was whining about the trilogy, the prequel trilogy, and who thought, no, you just got to take it away from him and give it to somebody else. Well, we didn't do any better without him.
I can't imagine that he's like feeling... I don't know. I don't know how he's feeling, but
he can't be happy about what's happened to his universe.
He must be devastated. If I'm just a fan of this thing,
he's the creator.
This is his baby, and oh my gosh, it's turning into Darth Vader right before his very eyes. So are we gonna rate, like, out of 5 planet-destroying Star Destroyers? Planet-destroying Star Destroyers. That sounds greatly ridiculous, so I think we should use it.
Okay, planet-destroying Star Destroyers. How many do you give it out of 5?
I'm gonna like, I don't know. Can you do halves?
Yeah.
Half a planet destroying Star Destroyer. I hated this movie.
Wow. I do not hate it nearly as much, but I will give it 2 planet destroying Star Destroyers out of 5. I didn't like it. I was very disappointed by it. Unlike Josh, I think I would still rather watch this than any of the prequels, but if I could just watch the Darth Maul fight, then I'd pick that, I guess.
Sure.
If I had to watch the
If
whole
somebody
prequel,
said,
though,
would you like to? It's true. I tried watching the first episode.
it's hard. We will do a ranking of all the Star Wars movies at some point in the future, and we'll see where everything shakes out for us. But I can't imagine above everything, yeah?
I mean, everyone's number 1 is going to be...
Maybe.
I actually like better than any other Star Wars
Do
movie.
you really? And I might say it's my favorite.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That movie is phenomenal.
Right?
Phenomenal.
Okay. That's enough from us. Thank you for watching. Please like this video if you liked it, and subscribe to our channel if you want to hear us review other movies in the future. We don't always bag on them, by the way. We're not as movie snobbish as we might seem in this video. Like, go back and watch our review for Knives Out if you haven't seen that one. We really enjoyed Knives Out.
Like it.
But we gave it 4.5
out of 5.
Whatever we rated that one.
It was demon golf balls from hell.
That's right. That's right. Very good. Hey, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Bye.